The 6.5 is on the road here in Santa Clara, the Pure Storage World Headquarters during GTC. Dan, what a week, what an event.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's beautiful here in Santa Clara, but this week has been a story that has been building of AI and the future. And we've had so many great opportunities to hear from the leadership at Nvidia, but we also are talking to so many of the partners and those that are driving the business. And that's what's brought us here to Santa Clara.
That's absolutely right. And the other thing, we know that it really takes a village here. And, GPUs, networking, I think one of the only thing NVIDIA is not doing now is storage. And we just happen to have Charlie here, CEO of Pure Storage. Charlie, welcome back to the 6.5.
Well, thank you, and welcome to Pure Headquarters.
It is beautiful here.
Thank you.
Lot of Pure Storage orange, which is amazing. And
a lot of green as well.
A lot of green. Moss art is in and trendy. So it's a beautiful campus.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks very much. Yeah.
I heard it's pretty new.
It is. We moved in last June, and the troops love it. We love it. I feel like we finally got out of the dormitory and have our own place. So,
it looks great. It's beautiful here. Charlie, you joined Pure Storage about 7 years ago. You had been speaking about AI since really you joined, and you were focused on the three sort of legs of infrastructure: storage, network, compute. Talk to us a little bit about kind of that position you had 7 years ago and where it came from and how it's evolved now.
Sure. Well, we have to go back. We have to go back in the time machine a little bit. And 7 years ago, the general view was that everything was going to the cloud, right? You remember that, very well, right? Literally everything was going to the cloud, and storage in particular was headed for white boxes, open source code, fully commoditized, JBOD, right? And frankly, everybody in the market, practically everybody in the market, all the major vendors viewed it that way. And so what did that mean? That meant they stopped investing. And I had a, sort of a contrarian point of view, which is that, well, if we believe that that computers, software, and AI was going to continue to change everybody's life, well, data centers, whether that was in the cloud or, in my belief, still hybrid, that is to say that many of the enterprises were going to be running their own data centers. If that was going to continue to be important, well, and if we continue to see advances in compute, continue to see advances in networking, well, then we have to see advances in storage as well. I was going to leave the opportunity open for a challenger to really challenge the major players who are no longer investing in it. And so when Pure came a-calling, I responded. I thought this was the company that actually, by investing in storage, was going to change, the trajectory of storage and maybe win the day. And we're seeing that happen.
Yeah, the foresight, it's easy to look at now, right? But it was a really hard call at that point. And, I'm constantly trying to educate as an analyst that, the importance of, I call it the quadrangle, which is, processing, network storage, memory, and accelerators. And storage is such a key part of the AI pipeline. Mm-hmm. And as you said, this is not new for you. You've had multiple AI deployments for years, but I have to ask, what's the state of those deployments? And maybe we can go from, ML, DL, generative AI, fill in the blanks here.
Yeah. Well, we have hundreds of AI customers, right? And I have to smile a little bit when I now talk about traditional AI, right? Because, there's nothing traditional about AI, but AI has been around, for at least a decade, and it was doing things such as protein folding or, simulating stock market reactions, for high-speed trading or, just controlling robots, in a factory, right? And we've been selling into those environments, for many, many years. Now, of course, the world has changed almost seemingly overnight with ChatGPT, with Gen AI, and now with RAG and other, and undoubtedly it's going to continue to build upon itself over the next several years. Fortunately, we do have a good background, but we also have to run like hell. Sorry for the French, to keep up with this market.
Sure.
It's great to have a great partnership with Nvidia and others as we go down this path. A number of our customers, especially our largest customers, are driving architectures and driving the software that demands a lot out of our systems. So it's great to be working with these companies. I think, and just to put a rapid bow around this picture, I personally believe it's not only going to drive the highest end of storage for things like large language models and training. I believe it's going to raise the level of the needs for all of the storage in customers' environments as they start to want to run models against all of their data.
Makes sense.
You mentioned traditional AI, Charlie, and it almost makes me think of the term legacy AI.
Yeah.
And, that doesn't really exist yet. Although Pat and I love to talk about how we have 4 decades of the earliest algorithms, so it's also not that new. But storage, I think there is sort of a well understood legacy architectures for storage, and of course, Pure has been very focused on Flash.
Right.
Now, with this AI inflection that we're seeing, talk a little bit about why Flash and why you see that as really important for driving this AI innovation.
Right. Well, there are several reasons. And not only are we highly focused on Flash, we're only focused on Flash, right? We have no disk whatsoever. Flash is important for multiple reasons. One is that, there's a lot of data. In fact, the majority of the world's data is on hard disk.
Sure.
Okay, which is hard to believe. When we think about computers and modern computers, we don't think about mechanical systems. Remember, go back to ENIAC, it had vacuum tubes, right? There's still mechanical systems in most data processing today, and they're called hard disks. Those hard disk systems just barely have the performance levels necessary for whatever application they're hiding behind, right? And because of that, if you also want to leverage that data for AI, well, you have to copy it out of there and put it in something more performant. But we now have the ability to just replace those hard disk systems with a similarly priced flash system, which will have 4 to 5 times the performance and at 1/10 the space, power, and cooling of that hard drive system. So that's another thing, that 1/10 the power and the cooling. Well, as you start adding GPUs, what do you need a lot of? You need a lot of power and cooling, and data centers tend to be limited in terms of the amount of power that they have. Data centers are not sold in square feet anymore; they are sold in megawatts. And if you're pressing up against the edge of your power envelope, you're stuck. There's no more power to be had in most locations of the world, including in the U.S. right now. And if you are forced to expand to another data center, or to bring in more power, you're talking about millions of dollars and years of activity and expense. So by being able to reduce the power and cooling footprint of your storage, you could save something on the order of 20% of your total data center power, which that you could then reuse for GPUs. So, whether it's power or whether it's performance, Flash just has it all over hard disk. And, the press loves simple projections, and we're now on track to eliminate all disk-based systems in the next 4 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. You put the performance CapEx and OpEx together, that combination, and you talked about millions of dollars. We're talking hundreds of millions, if not billions. I know there's a difference between hyperscaler and maybe a colo or enterprise data center, but you're in the tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars now.
Oh yeah.
And also accelerating that. And easily you see factoids of how much next generation data centers, how much power of the entire globe.
Oh yeah.
But we're looking at doubling the data center power draw in 2 years. So it's not just an economic CapEx or an economic OpEx or even performance. When you have all three, like you have with Flash, it's very compelling. And by the way, I have heard that Flash was going to get rid of hard drives each year for the end year, right? We've seen that, but it's like we're getting closer and closer there. So GTC, Nvidia, you and Nvidia have been partners for a long time. Can you talk a little bit, frame the relationship? What have you worked on?
Yeah.
What are you working on now together?
Well, it's a strong technical relationship. We have delivered together some of the largest, if not the largest, AI supercomputers in the world, right? When you are pressing the boundary of performance there's always another bottleneck to get through, right? A lot of times it's software, by the way, it's drivers, or it is the performance of the actual application software that's running. And together we've run up against a number of those hurdles, and we work together to be able to eliminate them. So that's been great. Now, as you know, one of the latest areas of focus for Nvidia is what they call RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. In RAG, what you want to be able to do, and this is something that we're very focused on together, you need to be able to access a large fraction, if not all of the data inside an enterprise, right? And again, that means that you have to be able to get access to it. There are two reasons why you can't, why it's very, very difficult to get access to all the data in an enterprise right now. One is, as I mentioned before, data is largely hidden behind the application it serves today. Right, it is not a first-class citizen from a networking perspective.
ERP with ERP, and
that's right. So if you want to copy the data, you often have to do it, through the application. If you want to access the data, you have to do it through the application. And if the performance level is just enough for the application, again, that's another barrier. So between the fact that the data itself is not networked, and that it is, and it doesn't have the performance necessary for RAG. As I mentioned, this is an opportunity to raise the level.
Yeah.
We Pure helped that in two different ways. One we mentioned, which was the performance level. The second one is because all of our systems operate on the same operating environment. In data storage today, even if you have a single vendor that's not Pure, generally they're supporting that full environment with 4 or 5 different hardware-software combinations. Yeah. Right? They're not unified. We have one software environment, we call it Purity. It exists on all of our systems. That allows us to then be able to leverage that with something we call Fusion to network the data storage, underlying the applications that it serves. And so this allows data to be accessible to things like AI, even when that data is supporting its primary application.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We've entered a world now where AI is sort of infused in every product, and then of course every one of our businesses, Charlie, are using AI.
Yeah,
I have to imagine, storage has evolved in a lot of ways. You talked about Purity. You talked about your software layer. How are you thinking about it, Pure, using AI to make storage operations for your practitioners that are using your systems? Is AI becoming part of that story?
It is. We just saw a demo of this last week at our sales kickoff. Simply stated, one of the things that Pure was founded on was the idea of simplicity. Our systems and individual systems very simple. What Fusion is doing is making a full-scale deployment of lots of different systems able to be accessed as if it's a single pool of data. And now we're looking at using AI to basically give it a natural language interface to customers. So customers could say, listen, I want to be able to provide X number of terabytes of storage to this application that I've just deployed. And instead of having to, define LUNs or to be able to actually write the code necessary to get it to happen, it would be generated automatically. Or let's say you wanted to analyze your retailer, and you've been running Pure Storage for the last year or two. You could say, look, I'm expecting a 30% increase in traffic over through the Christmas holiday. Will the system be able to operate, or are there things I need to enhance? And it would come back to that kind of language in a prompt, and it would be able to come back to you and tell you what you might need to do differently, or order, or change in order to be able to meet that surge in demand.
Yeah, it's been really fun. In my heart, I am a product person, and seeing kind of point of differentiation, incremental value to customers. I've liked the way that you were software first, and it was really about the experience. I like the architecture that enabled, hey, you need new storage, let's just pull it out and put a new, an upgrade in.
Yeah.
Very sustainable.
Yes.
That you also have Evergreen. How does Evergreen fit into, I can almost, hard for me to say this straight face, legacy AI?
Right.
But how does it play into this newer flavor of generative AI?
Well, the great thing about Evergreen, and now especially Evergreen One, is it gives the customers optionality for the future, where if they had purchased the product, they kind of get stuck on what they purchase and have to utilize that, right? With Evergreen One, they can basically sign a contract, and then as they go forward in the future, as their needs change, they can change out different parts of their storage for other parts of their storage. So, whereas a customer in the past decided, well, I've got this environment that I need storage for the next 10 years, and they would buy it. How much can we predict life 5 years from now, 10 years from now in the IT environment?
Hard.
Evergreen One gives the customer the benefit of not having to decide today what the next 5 or 10 years looks like. It gives them all that flexibility that they can change underneath.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen just crazy, ML, DL, generative AI, mixture of experts.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like every 2 years we're coming up that next new thing, and sure, researchers are working something. So somebody can buy Evergreen One and have some sort of a guarantee that they can protect some of their investment, even though you might be putting new tech in.
Correct. New tech or different tech, right? Okay. Or higher performance, or frankly, I need less of X, and they can do that.
Well, I mean, Pure really was building the Evergreen One model around looking and feeling a heck of a lot like cloud and how people consume.
Well, and actually, I will tell you that it is cloud now. It is SaaS.
I was just setting you up to say that.
Yeah, thank you. No, it is a SaaS model. The only difference is the infrastructure for that SaaS model. It could be on a hyperscaler, it could be on a colo, it could actually be on the customer's premise. But to really wrap a bow around that SaaS model, if it's on the customer premise, we pay them for the space and power because we're hosting it there.
Yeah, but it very much feels like how
Consumption model.
enterprises want to consume, and you've given them the flexibility to do that. Stay up to date, stay upgraded with the newest technologies. You can continue to evolve it and then deliver it to them.
Exactly right.
And this, as I see it, it's interesting, Pat. So many people at GTC are talking about how big of a moat does Nvidia have, and you and I both, we endlessly like to talk about, there's the chip kind of mercenaries, right? Oh, you've got a GPU, you've got an ASIC, you've got. Yeah. And then there's the systems, and then there's the whole stack. And if
CUDA and the software. Yes.
And if you look at that, that's sticky. With Evergreen One, I think there's an argument that you've put some years, time, energy, effort into building a pretty big moat. How big is that moat?
It's a big moat. We have 4 things that we think it's, you have to start your software from scratch in order to be able to mimic what we do. Evergreen's a good example of that, right? This whole idea where we can do non-disruptive upgrades literally forever, of every component in the system without causing any application downtime with our customer, right? If you haven't built your software from scratch to be able to do that, you're not going to, I don't think our competitors can. By the way, we've had it for 10 years, no one's caught up yet. So then we have our direct-to-flash technology, right? Direct-to-flash means we don't use SSDs, which were designed to mimic hard disks. Since when do you design a semiconductor to mimic a mechanical device? Okay. So we have our direct-to-flash. It's what's going to allow us, in my opinion, to be able to penetrate even the hyperscalers with our technology. Third, we have what we call our cloud operating model. So this is the idea that the customer interacts with us entirely through, and with the systems entirely through the web. With Evergreen One, they never have to touch a system. We manage that entirely, right? And the fourth one is the fact that we alone have a highly consistent portfolio, by which I mean we have one operating environment, which we call Purity, and one management environment, which we call Pure One, to manage all of our products. Whereas the storage industry has been characterized by having different software hardware combinations for every storage niche that exists out there. What Flash has allowed us to do is really unify to have one environment. Imagine we had a half dozen different networks in every customer. Right. How would you be able to network those applications? You wouldn't be able to do that, right? With a half dozen or more different storage systems, you can't really network that data, conveniently or efficiently. We have one operating environment across all our products. Makes it easier for our customers to be able to manage. Gives us the ability to have fusion whereby the data is able to be networked. And it just reduces the complexity for
There's a bit of a data management story in there.
There's a data management story in there, exactly.
And by the way, I have to hit on this. So I've been known to be the person sitting in these, and I'm never the first analyst to ask a question. But one thing I've definitely seen in the storage industry is storage companies recasting themselves as data companies.
Yep.
And then it's like, okay, well, what about the data management companies?
Yes.
How do these two come together? So there's a little bit of marketing going on, but is there a little bit of reality going on where that data is right there?
Yeah.
Let's activate it. Let's do something to it.
So there's a little bit of both, as you point out, and the difficulty is because there's not the right words yet to describe this. So, for example, the data storage companies generally don't know the exact data that's in the system. But what we will be managing is not the individual bits of data,
right,
but the data sets themselves, the whole data sets. And if you think about how data is exploding and how there are different data sets that need to be used and need to be managed, because when you make a copy of a data set, don't you want to know where that copy is? And when you modify that copy and yet make another copy of it, you want the provenance of all these different data sets and how they relate to one another. That's what we can manage. Now, there's still going to be, the whole ETL chain, somewhat disrupted by AI, but there's going to be a whole ETL chain, and there's data management that goes on there as well. So if I were to be, even more exact as to what we do when we talk, that is we Pure do when we manage data, I'd call it data set management.
Interesting.
Kind of a file versus object, and there's some complexities in that. But
exactly
the way eventually, and by the way, Pat, you were kind of nice, but I'll give Charlie the last word on this. But I mean, there are some companies that are storage companies that are kind of proclaiming to be data management companies.
Oh, yes,
at this
that's
point.
right.
And that's going on. And, we're doing a lot of work internally to sort of, there's a certain amount of that, to your point, that can be done.
Right.
But there is a cutover.
There's a cutover between data sets and data itself. That's right.
So wrap us up here.
Yeah.
Give us the outlook for the next year. I mean, geez, it feels like asking you doesn't give you enough runway, but realistically, how much innovation happens in a year now? I mean, we're back a year. What's the next year for Pure look like?
Well, we've done an amazing, really our product proliferation over the last year has been nothing short of tremendous. We introduced just not even a year ago our first E family product, which was FlashBlade E.
That's right.
We've had tremendous success with the E family. This is the first product line that can now address cheap disk, at a similar price point, but 1/10 the space, power, and cooling. And it's what allows us now to claim with the one operating environment that we can satisfy all the customers' needs, right? Because while it was just what Flash was before, which was high end, we weren't addressing the majority of needs.
Sure.
Now we can address the majority of needs. Fusion is going to allow us to network that data or those data sets so that customers can get access to it regardless of where it is inside the entire environment. And you're going to see, of course, us really addressing some of the highest performance needs for even training in the AI environment. So full range on one operating environment, one set of products that are consistent from AI all the way down to archive, right? Block, file, and object, and everything from small scale to large scale to, exabyte scale. So it's a pretty broad, an amazing product line to be, fully integrated with one operating system.
Charlie, thanks so much for sitting down with us here.
Yeah. No, it's really my pleasure, always.
It's great stuff. Great
to see you
office.
both.
Great message. I mean, it's fun stuff.
Yeah, excited to follow the journey, and I'm sure we'll be talking really soon.
Thank you very much for the time.
All right, everybody, hit that subscribe button. Join us for all of our episodes here of the 6-5. We're on the road at Pure Storage at their beautiful headquarters here in Santa Clara during the GTC 24 conference. We got to go for now, but we'll see you all really soon. Bye-bye.